Things are getting bigger and bigger day by day because size actually matters. And that's the reason why even though front wheel drive SUVs are a pseudo concept because they are not really off-road capable, size does matter there as well. And that's the reason why we are comparing two of the biggest front wheel drive SUVs to see which is the better one amongst them. That's the reason we are pitting the Tata Harrier against the MG Hector in today's video, and I'm going to be giving you a concrete answer which is the better car. But before we get going, make sure to click on that like button, hit the subscribe button, and also click on the bell icon. Both the cars have the same thought of putting the LED DRL in the position where conventionally headlights are. However, that also doubles up as the indicators. But on the MG Hector, it gets the floating indicator treatment, which actually looks quite cool. But that is where the similarities end between both these cars because they look very different indeed. The Hector is longer, it has a longer wheelbase too, and it's taller too. The Harrier is wider, which gives it a brilliant stance. While the Hector is a bit polarizing from certain angles, the Harrier is not. It's just a better design. It actually looks like a mini Land Rover with great proportions and of course a macho presence on the road as well. The Hector on the other hand has small wheels. I know both the cars use 17-inch wheels, but the Hector also has smaller size tires, 215s instead of the 235s on the Harrier. Both the cars have good looking wheels, but I personally like the ones on the Hector. They simply look classier. I know the Harrier could also do with bigger wheels, but it's not that obvious on the Harrier. Now, where Tata has done cost cutting is the fact that these are not all LED lights because the low beam happens to be an HID projector xenon, not an LED. But the Hector gets all LEDs. Even the fog lamp is halogen on the Harrier. So yes, a bit of cost cutting has been done there. Lot of chrome on both these cars. But somehow the way Tata Motors has done it looks slightly classier because there's not an overdose of chrome, which is the case with the Hector. Now this is of course an accessory, so don't go by that, but still plenty of chrome on the Hector. All LED lights have been carried over to the rear as well for the Hector, and of course the floating indicators, which look really very cool. But the rear is a bit too busy. Yes, this is part of optional kit, but yet the rear is a bit busy. Of course this bumper area looks a bit overdone, and there is no exhaust here. There's a proper exhaust there. Could have been a little bit more subtle and less busy of course. The Harrier has perfectly nailed it. You get the Land Rover feel, dare I say it, sort of a velourness here at the rear. Harrier boldly written, and the bumper is finished in black, reduces the visual bulk, but not all is merry because fake exhaust, like really? Why do you even need to do that? The MG Hector is just the more comfortable car here. It's got more space on offer and the seats are better too because they have judged the lumbar support properly here. Meanwhile, in the Harrier, there's an excess of it. Of course, both the front seats of the Hector are powered. Meanwhile, in the case of the Harrier, it is only the driver's seat which is powered. The Hector also gets a lot more features when compared to the Harrier, like front parking sensors, front camera, 360-degree camera, a powered tailgate, 8-color ambient lighting, and a massive infotainment system, which also gives you a lot more features, including the Ghana app, because this car also gets connected car tech, which is missing in the Harrier, a glaring omission. The Hector also gets heated mirrors and a better audio system from Infinity, which just sounds better than the Harrier. The Harrier's is not bad at all. In fact, it's also very good. It's just that the Infinity system is slightly better here. The Hector also gets height adjustable seatbelts at the front, and the driver's side sun visor also gets a mirror and a light, which is again missing on the Harrier. In order to use the infotainment system, the Harrier is just ergonomically better. However, overall ergonomics are better in the Hector because your left foot does not foul against the center console, which is an issue with the Harrier. Both the cars have good fit finish and quality, but there are certain rough edges around the interior. But that said, MG has done cost cutting where they shouldn't have, like the inside rear view mirror is not auto dimming at this price point. Shocking. The Hector's rear seat is just better than the Harrier in terms of space. It also gets a flat floor, which means that 3 people can actually sit in, more so because there is an adjustable center headrest, which is missing in the Harrier. The Harrier does not get a center headrest. Meanwhile, the cabin is all black, looks kind of sporty, but not as airy. However, you get a massive panoramic roof, although the one on the Harrier is even bigger and also gets some really smart features like rain sensor, anti-pinch, and it also closes the sunroof if you leave it open and lock the car. Meanwhile, in the Hector, you can open the sunroof with your phone thanks to connected car tech. This car also gets voice commands which work really fluidly. Meanwhile, in the Harrier, there are voice commands which are very restrictive, doesn't really do much. The air conditioning in both the cars is quite effective, but Tata Motors has chosen to put the rear AC vents on the B pillar. Meanwhile, MG has done it here in the center, right behind the center console, which somehow works slightly better than that on the Harrier. The Hector's boot is bigger than the Harrier, and with the power tailgate, it is just so much more convenient to keep stuff inside this car. Meanwhile, in the case of the Harrier, the boot might be smaller, but there is a compartment below the boot floor where you can actually keep stuff as well. The Harrier's dashboard looks really very nice. Personally, for me, I like it better here because of the way the design has been done. It's just more appealing with a lot of different colors and textures being used. In fact, it gets piano black, it gets brushed silver, it gets fake wood treatment and soft materials as well. So yeah, it has a lot of nice design elements here. That said, ergonomically it could have been better because your left foot brushes against the center console. Meanwhile, the instrument cluster on the Harrier is slightly easier to read. You get a digital readout for the tachometer too, and it's only the speedometer which is analog. Not the same case with the Hector, although both of these cars use a 7-inch screen in the instrument cluster. Tata Motors has done a fantastic job when it comes to storage spaces inside the Harrier. There are a load of them. In fact, it also gets umbrella holders in the front doors. Meanwhile, in the rear doors, there's an additional compartment as well. The Tata Harrier gets a very commanding driving position. You can see the hood while driving, and because the cabin is wide, actually the Harrier itself is wider than the Hector, gives you a nice feel of driving an SUV. But this handbrake is a bit too gimmicky, very unnecessary. If you can't give an electric parking brake, just give a normal handbrake. Why this gimmick? And Tata Motors has also slightly removed the logo projection which used to come from the outside rear view mirrors on the pre-facelift of the Harrier, which used to show the design of the Harrier out on the road at night. Shouldn't have done that. While the Harrier does not get ambient lighting, it does get color themes for the infotainment system as well as the instrument cluster, which also changes the mode of the audio output from rock, pop, etc. and also changes the air conditioning. Kind of weird but smart. But unfortunately, in spite of these cars costing considerably more than the Korean siblings, they still miss out on a lot of features offered by the Koreans, like there's no driver rear view monitor, there are no front ventilated seats, no heads up display either. These cars also miss out on a wireless charger and auto hold function. The air doesn't really feel fresh here because these cars also miss out on an air purifier which is offered by the Korean siblings. And these cars also don't get the manual sunblind which is again there in the Korean siblings. The Harrier seat does not recline like in the case of the Hector, so you can change the recline angle. If you try to recline it here, it just folds flat because there's the 60-40 split treatment which is also there in the Hector. But you get a hump here, there's no center headrest. This is best for 2 people, although the cabin is wide enough. The center passenger won't be really that comfortable. So while the engines are the same and the output is also the same, but not really, because the Harrier also gets multi-drive modes, Eco, City and Sport, which varies the output from the engine, and of course it feels so much more spritey in Sport mode. So yes, performance is also very nice with the Harrier, although very similar to the Hector, but somehow this feels smoother and the refinement levels are marginally better too. But it's really in terms of the driving feel where the Harrier truly shines. It definitely feels more SUV, which I've said like 15 times already, but the steering has more feel. It's a hydraulic unit, it is heavier, both at low speeds and as the speeds increase, and weighs up better than the Hector for sure, although there's some amount of slack in the center head position. But this is still so much fun because body roll is dramatically better contained, and although at lower speeds it feels a little stiff, and the Hector obviously is softer and smoother, as the pace increases the Harrier feels so much better because the Harrier's high-speed ride is phenomenal. Rather, once you cross the low speeds where the Hector shines, the Hector's ride diminishes and the Harrier's uplifts because the Hector has that bouncy feel at higher speeds due to the soft suspension giving some amount of vertical movement as well, and the high-speed stability on this car is just so much better than the Hector. So in terms of dynamics, Tata Motors has absolutely nailed it with the Harrier, and that's not all. It also has these terrain modes with which it can go off-road. It has a very nice ESP system with 14 associated functions. Now obviously I cannot remember all those 14 functions, but I can tell you a few of them, like it has got brake disc wiping, it has got off-road ABS, it has got cornering stability control, traction control system, rollover mitigation, and all those things. It just helps this car to perform flawlessly well, although I have one complaint. If I want to turn off traction control and if I'm in sport mode, it will automatically put me out of sport mode, put me straight back into city mode. What's the point of that? How am I going to spin the wheels of the car? Here's the irony, neither of these cars use their own diesel engines. Yes, that's right. This happens to be a Fiat sourced 2-liter multi-jet motor with similar output numbers, and performance is nice with a strong mid-range and a top end which kind of becomes too vocal. The Hector feels good to drive. Actually, it feels easy to drive because of the light steering wheel and good visibility aided by the 360-degree parking camera. The Harrier feels more robust, more SUV to drive, and you get a better feel from the car. But the softer suspension of the Hector yields it great ride at lower speeds, which kind of goes on the bouncy side as you speed up. So yes, it's not the best in terms of high-speed ride and has a lot of body roll too because of the soft suspension, which means when you're turning it hard, there isn't as much grip on offer because of the smaller size tires when compared to the Harrier, which just feels more driver oriented somehow. The Harrier's NVH is better than the Hector's because in the Hector you can hear a lot more of the road, the suspension too, and the wind noise is slightly more than that in the Harrier. But the braking performance of the Hector is better than that of the Harrier because the pedal feel is better. The Harrier has too much play on the brake pedal, and the Harrier also does not get rear disc. However, when you brake really hard with the Hector, because of the soft suspension, there is some nosedive as well. Even though that the engines are the same of both the cars, the Hector is slightly more frugal than the Harrier. The clutch on both the cars is well weighed, but the gearbox is slightly slicker shifting in the Harrier. Tata Motors obviously has a bigger sales and service network when compared to MG, but MG is also expanding its sales and service outlets. However, the warranty on the Hector is just better. It comes with a 5 years unlimited kilometer warranty, but the infotainment is only covered for 3 years and the battery in the petrol hybrid is covered for 1 year. Meanwhile, the Harrier comes with a 2 years 1 lakh kilometer warranty, which can be extended within 90 days of purchase to 5 years unlimited kilometers for a price of Rs 25,960. But the suspension and clutch are only covered till 50,000 kilometers. Both these cars have a lot to offer indeed. The MG Hector gets more features, more space, also gets connected car tech, and has a better low-speed ride as well. But what really makes a big difference for the Hector is the fact that it offers even more value for money than what Tata Motors has been able to with the Harrier, because with all that tech, features and space, it still costs a whopping Rs 1.3 lakhs lesser than the Tata Harrier. The Harrier on the other hand though is a better overall product. It feels better engineered, it has a robust platform, it kind of feels indestructible when you drive it. So if you're going to be chauffeur driven, it is the Hector you should opt for. And of course, it also comes with petrol and hybrid options. Meanwhile, the Harrier does not. The Harrier comes with a diesel automatic, which is not there in the Hector, but the Harrier has more feel when you drive it. It is the more SUV of both these cars, also can do mild off-roading thanks to the terrain modes, and is my personal choice between both these cars today. If you like this video, make sure to give it the thumbs up, which I've already told you in the start of the video. If you have not done it, click it once again. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.